Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
In the United States, the man who investigated Donald Trump for alleged collusion with Russia has given a damning verdict in his first statement on the subject. Robert Mueller pointedly again refused to exonerate the president for obstruction of justice and said he'd been prevented from charging Donald Trump by the Constitution.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional.
Let's talk to our North America editor, John Sobel, who's at the White House. So, John, you've been listening to what Robert Mueller had to say. What do you make of his parting shot before he bows out of public life?
Well, Fiona, this was a dramatic moment. I mean, Robert Mueller hasn't spoken in public for 2 years, so it was keenly awaited what he would say. And in essence, he said, look, Donald Trump goes free on a technicality. The Department of Justice says we can't prosecute him. If we thought he was innocent, we would have said so, but we don't think that. Now, this is a tape that is going to be played and replayed by Democrats who want to damage the president, because I think that what this shows is that there is still a huge question mark. Donald Trump has tried to characterize the Mueller report in 4 words, like a perfect bumper sticker: no collusion, no obstruction. Well, Mueller today flatly contradicted that. Now, Donald Trump's come up with a very different interpretation, as you might imagine. Although very interesting the way he phrases it. He says there was insufficient evidence and therefore in our country a person is innocent. So is that how he's setting the bar? That if there's insufficient evidence to prosecute me, then I'm free? Now, I think what the net effect of all this is going to be is that Robert Mueller is punting this to Congress and saying, look, I've gone as far as I can go. If you want to impeach the president, it is now up to you to take up the cudgels and take up the fight. It is something the Democratic leadership have been extremely wary of doing.
We shall see, John Sobel. Thank you.
The US Special Counsel in charge of the investigation into alleged collusion between Russia and the Trump election campaign has said that charging the president with a crime was not an option. In his first public comments, Robert Mueller announced he was leaving the Justice Department now his investigation was over, adding, if we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Danny Eisdale is in Washington, D.C. Danny.
Well, Kathy, since the report was released in April, there's been so much anticipation for this moment that turned out to be a less than 10-minute show. Robert Mueller unplugged, if you like. One congressman described it as, yes, we've read the book, but now we want to see the movie. Let me say, and you've said it already, but let me say again what the key quote from that movie would be, because they are 19 words that will be chewed over endlessly here in Washington and across the states. If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Now, some House Democrats, including some 2020 election candidates and one lone Republican so far, have seized on that, saying that is as close as Robert Mueller can possibly get to an impeachment referral, that it's tantamount to basically saying, over to you, Madam Speaker, in terms of pursuing impeachment proceedings. Especially when you combine it with another one of Robert Mueller's remarks, where he basically said that only Congress can accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing. Now, we've heard from House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler just in the past few moments, and he said, given that Special Counsel Mueller was unable to pursue criminal charges against the president, it falls to Congress to respond to the crimes, lies and other wrongdoing of President Trump, and we will do so. He stopped short of calling for an impeachment inquiry, which he is empowered to do, and that is interesting. If they do go there, it will be quite a scene to unfold, because there is a consideration, a view, that perhaps it's politically dangerous in 2020 for the Democrats to go down that road, that there are enough voters sick of all of this Mueller business. They want to hear what the Democrats hope for the future rather than President Donald Trump's past. That would certainly be something the White House would hope for. They are carrying on business as usual. The president says this case is closed. But Capitol Hill, well, they are saying, and more loudly now than ever, quite the opposite.
For more than 2 years, one of the most talked about figures in the US never once took to the stage himself. Would this be the moment, the big final number, where the enigmatic star finally takes, then drops the mic?
I'm speaking out today because our investigation is complete. We are formally closing the special counsel's office And as well, I'm resigning from the Department of Justice to return to private life.
So Robert Mueller now says the ball is out of his court. His report was released and everything he can say has been said. But today's address was about underlining something crucial, something he made clear.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
We already knew he didn't determine the president did or didn't commit obstruction. Now Special Counsel Mueller is making sure we really understand he was never empowered to make that call.
Under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider.
A different tone taken to that of his boss, Attorney General William Barr, as appointed by President Trump.
The evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense.
Barr was heavily criticised by the president's opponents, accusing him of selling a false narrative from the White House. The Democrat-controlled Congress has been tussling over taking matters into their own hands and pursuing impeachment proceedings. This has pushed some in that direction.
I think it's a fair inference from what we heard in that press conference that Bob Mueller was essentially referring impeachment to the United States Congress.
As President Trump returned from his trip to Japan, a thumbs up and a heads up. The White House was notified last night that Robert Mueller would be making public remarks in the morning. Today, a predictable presidential tweet. Nothing changes from the Mueller report. There was insufficient evidence and therefore in our country a person is innocent. The case is closed. Thank you. Robert Mueller's role, at least, is over.
Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner. I am making that decision myself. No one has told me whether I can or should testify or speak further about this matter. There has been discussion about an appearance before Congress. Any testimony from this office would not go beyond our report. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
He took no questions today, but House Democrats have been and still are urging him to answer plenty.
No questions.
On Capitol Hill, in public, under oath.
Well, let's return now to our previous report on the Mueller investigation in the United States. And joining me from Washington, D.C. is Max Bergman, who's director of the Moscow Project, which has been looking into the alleged ties between Trump's campaign team and Russia. Do you think that today's 8-minute statement from Robert Mueller changed very much, if anything at all?
Oh, I think it had a huge impact. I think part of what happened was Mueller just said out loud what was in his report. But his report was 448 pages, and so what was impactful was what he actually said, what he selected from the 448 pages. And what did he select? He selected to identify that this was in fact, that the report he produced was in fact an impeachment referral, that the conduct that he outlined was extremely bad. And he said that if he could exonerate the president, he would have. And he didn't do that. And the reason why he didn't do that is because the conduct outlined in the report is so striking.
Well, he was pretty veiled, though, wasn't he? Because he did say there was insufficient evidence to charge a broader conspiracy. So when Trump tweets the case is closed, thank you, is there a glimmer of truth in that, or is that wishful thinking?
No, I think that's extremely wishful thinking. And in fact, that represents a total climb down for Trump. You know, in fact, you know, he had said this was a total exoneration after the Attorney General had come out and sort of spun the report. And so what Mueller is saying, he just couldn't get enough evidence to sustain a charge of conspiracy. But then, you know, he points to the obstruction of justice and says, well, there's a ton of evidence here, but I cannot bring charges against the president. And this was key. As everyone asked, why did Mueller not bring charges? Well, Mueller says he was constitutionally unable to because he can't bring charges against the president as a member of the president's administration, as a member of the Department of Justice. And so what Mueller is effectively doing here is saying this is Congress's job now.
Right, so how does Congress then move forward? I mean, where does the impeachment prospect go now?
Well, this was a huge striking moment. And what Nancy Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the House, and others who were sort of opposed to impeachment or moving forward on impeachment, what they wanted was Mueller to speak. They wanted hearings to try to convince the public that this was serious. So now hearing from Mueller has effectively put the ball back in their court. Mueller has effectively confirmed to them that this is an extremely serious thing, that Mueller was effectively telling Congress, this is up to you to now take the next step. And so I think we're already seeing cries grow in Washington and Congress for an impeachment hearing, impeachment inquiry to begin. We sort of saw that from the House Judiciary Committee chairman. So this is something that I think is going to, the pressure is only going to build on Speaker Pelosi to move forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
But that could actually be a trap for the Democrats. Some of them want to move on to other things.
So I think there's this political debate internally within the Democratic Party. Frankly, I don't see it as a trap. You know, in 1974, when Nixon resigned and the impeachment inquiry began, no one knew whether that was going to be politically advantageous for the Democrats. And what happened was in the 1974 elections, it was a total wipeout for the Republicans. And then in 1976, Jimmy Carter became president. And I think this notion that impeachment is this big political loser there isn't much factual basis for it, just based on the presumption that there'll be blowback. But I think there's going to be harsh blowback if they don't proceed with an impeachment inquiry.
Max Bergman, thank you very much for joining us.
Now to politics in the United States now, and the investigation into whether there was Russian interference in America's presidential election. The lawyer who led it, Robert Mueller, spoke in public about it for the first time. He said he wanted it to be his last word on the matter, but actually he reopened arguments that his report was supposed to end. He insisted his report did not clear the president of obstructing justice. Mr. Mueller said if he was sure that the president was innocent, he would have said so. Ouch. So I guess over to you, Congress.
He hasn't said a word until now.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here.
But breaking his silence did nothing to end the acrimony his investigation has brought in its wake. His words were those of a lawyer, careful and considered.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider.
President Trump has always maintained Mueller's investigation was politically motivated and that he didn't collude with the Russians in the 2016 election or obstruct Mueller's investigation.
It's very clear there was no collusion, there was no obstruction, so there's no redo. Yeah.
Today, he once again tried to draw a line. Nothing changes, he tweeted. There was insufficient evidence and therefore in our country a person is innocent. The case is closed. But the Democrats seized the moment.
Mueller again highlighted this morning, it falls to Congress to respond to the crimes, lies, and other wrongdoing of President Trump. We will do so.
And it's this woman, Democrat Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, who'll decide how exactly Congress responds. And she's been cautioning against impeachment.
Many constituents want to impeach the president, but we want to do what is right and what gets results.
Meanwhile, President Trump's spokeswoman called the Democrats bitter losers.
Just because Democrats don't like the results of the 2016 election or the Mueller report, it doesn't mean they get a do-over. It's sad that they have no message, that they have no agenda.
The did he, didn't he battle just won't go away, with both sides hearing what they want to hear from what's being said. Robert Mueller may have formally wound up his investigation today, but the accusations, they don't stop here. Mueller's work is now done. His conclusions about sustained Russian interference in the 2016 election were serious. But it's his failure to draw conclusions about the president, which is eclipsing all other political debate here. Penny Marshall, News at 10, Washington.